Hello, Professor Sammy. My name is Rohan, and I will be presenting Afghanistan through the cold. Um, just for a basic, table of contents, I will be briefly explaining, uh, the Cold War and how it affected Afghanistan. There will also be a segment of videos, one for my parents' experience and the other for my personal experience, and then there will be the result of the Cold War and how Afghanistan is now. First off, intro to the cold. Just for a basic introduction, the Cold War began after World War II between the US and the Soviet Union over political influence around the world. The Soviets wanting to spread communism and the Americans wanting to stop the spread of communism. Communism is a political and economic system that seeks to create a classless society in which the major means of production, such as mines and factories, are owned and controlled by the public. There is no government or private property or currency, and wealth is divided among citizens equally or according to individual need. And capitalism, which is the side of the Americans, is a free market economy or free enterprise economy, dominant, obviously in America, but dominant in the Western world, which, mostly means most means of production are privately owned and production is guided and income is distributed largely through the operation of markets. Just for a basis of the Cold War map, there were a lot more wars, but obviously we're specifically speaking on Afghanistan. First, Afghanistan was the country where one of the proxy wars of the Cold War occurred, and the United States funded the Afghan resistance against the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union was the country that invaded Afghanistan and attempted to instill its ideologies. Here is the resistance. The resistance consisted of the National Resistance Front of Afghanistan, led by Ahmad Shah Massoud. He is a big figure in Afghanistan, or was a big figure. The resistance was also led by the Mujahideen and U.S. funding, aka Operation Cyclone. The result of the Cold War. So, according to the sources that, according to my sources, it is estimated that anywhere from 500,000 to 2 million people were killed during the Cold War in Afghanistan, and the Cold War in Afghanistan lasted from 1979 until 1989. Some other consequences of this conflict was the major refugee crisis, in which over 6 million people fled the country in seek of shelter and safety, a humanitarian crisis, since due to half of the population having to be on the move, it left the country in a crisis, the formation of Al-Qaeda. The formation of Al-Qaeda led to 9/11, which also led to the U.S.'s invasion of Afghanistan, and the rise of the Taliban. The country was in a civil war, and it was easy for the Taliban to take over huge chunks of the land, and now the Taliban has completely taken over all of Afghanistan. My parents' experience. So in this portion, my mother and I briefly speak on her experiences. I would include this in the presentation, but this would roughly take the presentation to a 20-minute long video. But yeah. And the third section, my personal experience. It's the same thing with this. This is a 5-minute long video, so I would add this, but this would take my presentation to almost 20 minutes. And now I'd like to briefly cover Afghanistan and how it is now. So, the biggest thing that has happened recently is the Taliban takeover. From February 29th, 2020 to August 30th, 2021 was the time or the duration of time in which America began withdrawing from Afghanistan. And during that time, the former president of Afghanistan also withdrew and left. And in May 1st, 2021 through August 15th, 2021, the Taliban officially took over Afghanistan, and it is now named the United Emirates of Afghanistan. Some glaring and big issues that are currently occurring are the food crisis. There is a huge shortage of food nationwide. Also, just the unsafe environments because their country is essentially taken over by the Taliban. Most of the citizens within the country do not feel safe at all. Another big issue is there is no clean water for people to drink, and it is very hard to access water, as well as a huge doctor shortage. This was a glaring issue back when there was aid, but now that there is no aid at all, there's just not enough doctors to support the sick and the people that are hurt. Another big issue, again, is that there's no aid. Now that Afghanistan is not even considered a country, little to no aid is provided for the people. And no school. There is a big issue with the schooling system, well, the lack of a schooling system. There is just flat out no school. Here's my source cited page, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you.